I see we have a few more people joining us, and with much luck, we'll probably have a lot more joining us. So I'll just go ahead and introduce myself, and we'll get the presentation started. For those of you who just heard, I'm also co-founder of 52 Hike Challenge. We're getting people outdoors. But in this role right here, I also work at Cal State Fullerton Startup Incubator. I'm an entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurship. I'm all about entrepreneurship. And so they call me the startup enthusiast here. I manage the incubator, and that is helping people with ideas and getting them launched. And we tend to find that there are not just beginners to entrepreneurship and who really are kind of like not sure where to go because there's so many things to learn about starting up a business. But we've also had people that have started a business and also got stuck, and we've helped them get unstuck. So that's kind of what we do at the incubator. We help them for 6 months. It's a very custom approach, as you can imagine, with beginners to those people who have been in business for a few months or even a few years. We help them in all different phases. It's not a cohort. It is individualized one-on-one help. And we also provide a student team to assist, whether that be marketing or accounting or whatever it may be. You can get in contact with me. We'll keep watching the chat window. Feel free to introduce yourself. I will go ahead and put contact information for myself as well as Mike and Lavasha. And with that, I will turn it over to them and they will take care of the presentation. So please introduce yourselves, presenters, and let's kick it off.
Okay. Great. Lavasha, do you want to go first?
Well, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lavasha, and I've been coaching for, maybe over 10 years, but then also officially throughout the years, I started getting some certifications, some other things like that. But right now, I also teach at UCI, University of California, Irvine. I teach project management. And, working with teams or working with organizations, with teams, a lot of the communication factors come in. And so I decided to get certified in the DISC because I know it's a tool to help facilitate communication and the dynamics that happens on teams. So today I'm happy just to serve you, and hopefully you get some ideas and some strategies from our presentation today.
Yeah, great. And my name is Mike Gilman, and I spent my previous life in corporate America, nonprofits and corporate America as an internal coach and internal consultant, developing teams, developing leaders, and also using DISC. I've been using DISC for over 15 years, and it's a really effective tool. And so Lavasha and I have teamed up today because we are maybe DISC enthusiasts, right? Similar to Philip being the startup enthusiasts. Again, it's a tool. It's not a cure-all, but we want to share with you the different applications for it. And so for today, we gave everyone an opportunity to take the DISC. For those who did take it, then certainly you'll be able to follow along with your own report. For those that did not know what the heck it was or didn't have the opportunity, we're going to give you until Friday to take the assessment if you would like, before we kind of pull that access offline. So while the information is still fresh from today, you'll still be able to do that. And then we'll also be offering like a 20-minute strategy session for free to anyone that's registered here. So if you want to take a deeper dive into your results, you have the opportunity to do that. Okay?
Yeah, perfect.
So with that, I'm gonna go ahead and screen. Okay, just to give us a sense of who's in the room and what your challenges are. We're going to put up a poll, or Philip's going to put up a poll for you. If you can select your top 3 challenges top 3 challenges as an entrepreneur that you are experiencing right now. We'll share the results in a moment. All right. Almost have everybody. A few more, 5 more seconds. Anyone else want to chime in with their vote? All right, probably end the poll.
So what are they? Let's see.
All right, you can see the results there, 44%. Would like to develop proper resources. You're struggling developing proper resources and tools. 33% leading the team effectively. Same percentage marketing and selling to your target customer. So those were the top 3 overall. And so we'll definitely touch upon those today. And feel free in the chat throughout the presentation to post your questions or whatnot, and we're happy to answer them as we're kind of moving along the way. So here's our roadmap for today. So we're going to start off with an overview of what is DISC, and give you some background on it, and talk about 2 aspects of the DISC. We all have a natural style, a style that we prefer and that we're comfortable with, and then we also have an adapted style as well. And we'll dive into that and what the differences are between the 2 and what the implications are for your respective startups. We'll also have an opportunity, we'll have a couple breakout discussions. We have an intimate group today, so some things we'll be doing as a large group, some things will break you out into pairs or maybe groups of 3. But you'll have an opportunity to apply the DISC theory to someone in your breakout group. So it's an opportunity to practice some of the skills. And then we'll share with you some other resources as well, what it looks like for a team to be taking the DISC, and just Q&A as well at the end. So that's our roadmap. So these are some uses for where DISC can really help, and primarily a starting point for most teams or most business owners use it for communication, right? One is self-awareness, but how can you become more effective in communicating with others? And during COVID, it makes things even more complicated because when we're stressed, we're not always our usual self. And so we're going to share with you how DISC can be used for the different purposes you see here, as well as establishing your credibility. And I know one of the top concerns was how to sell to your market to your customers. What if you could assess your customer's personality style and adjust your communication to be most effective for that? So there's a lot of applications there. The DISC assessment itself has been around a long time. In the aftermath of World War II, there were a ton of researchers doing assessments to place returning soldiers, veterans, into the workforce and get them into the right jobs and all of those things. And so Dr. William Marston started doing some research. He was a Harvard professor, and he wrote kind of a book, a theory on the emotions of normal people. So this DISC assessment is really based on that, kind of the normal people, quote unquote, how we define it. And some fun facts is he's the inventor of the lie detector test, and as well as Wonder Woman. And he was on a bent to create a new framework for women, a new way for people to look at women as empowered, right, and capable, and all those things that Wonder Woman represents.
Yay, women. We're empowered.
I think on Monday was it March 1st? It's International Women's Month.
Oh, okay, okay. We about to get this party started then.
Women's Month coming up, yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes to understand what something is, it's helpful to know what it's not. So the DISC is not a personality test. However, it does tie in with our personality. The DISC is really focused on behaviors, right? And sometimes those are an outcome of our personality, but it's really focused on observable behaviors and kind of creates that universal language. So if you're using this with a prospective partner or an existing partner or a team, it gives you a common reference point with which to have conversations or resolve conflicts, or build your business case, or for pitching your product or your business, whatever it may be, to a VC. So again, it's a tool for dialogue. It's not intended to put you in a box. Many people feel that certain assessments put them in a box. It's really meant to just be a vehicle for better effectiveness, so you can get the outcomes that you're looking for. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Laveisha to provide you an overview of what DISC is and what are the things to be mindful of. And if you don't have something to write with, by the way, it'll be helpful for you during this presentation, particularly when we get into some of the breakout discussions. So I recommend that as well.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Okay, let me start off by saying, and setting the ground rule is that we're a combination of all four. And there's one or two that are dominant that is natural to you. And so we're talking about the natural styles at this point. Okay, I kind of give them my own name just for clarity and people to understand it better. But the first style is the D style, and that's the decisive, right? You're focused on the what. We're focused on results and driving. So I almost call them the driver of this type of whole quadrant. And they enjoy challenges. They're not fearful of any challenge. Bring it on. They're like, okay, yes, I got it. But they also fear of losing control, right? So if you're in a meeting with a D, one of the things to help you is to be prepared and be clear and be specific and brief. And one of the other downfalls of being decisive is that your patience is a little thin, right? So that's the importance of being prepared and being clear and concise with what you want in the meeting. And then we go to the I style. That's it's the interactive, but I call them the life of the party, right? They are the people that are focused on relationships and the who, and they love to solve problems. And one of the things to engage them in a meeting is don't ask them necessarily about the details, but ask them for their opinion and their ideas, because they fear rejection. So being inclusive is something that an I is also looking for. So you have the D and then you have the I. So then you have the stabilizing. This is the person I call, I don't know if you guys know the song. It's like We Are Family. I call them the We Are Family. And they're the stabilizing. And so they focus on the how, right? The security and the stability. And one of the strengths of a stabilizing person is that they bring support. They're going to be supportive, because remember, we are family. So we're all in this together. And a key word when you're thinking about stabilizing is we. And when you're in a meeting with them, try to be honest and open, and try to present challenges in a non-threatening way, right? Because they fear sudden change and chaos, right? So then if you are able to present information in a non-challenging way, that opens them up, and they're invited to give their feedback and ideas on problems or issues. And then finally, we have the cautious. I call them the analyzer of the group. And they're really good at data analysis and accuracy, and they focus on the why. Why are we doing this project? Is it important? What's the why? What's the root cause of this this startup and what's our why? Because, I know there's a book out there on understanding your why. This is fundamental for a C or a cautious person, because if you understand your why, then they're able to provide the support and the data analysis to really help you move your products and services forward. So again, they like solving complex problems. So then when you're in a meeting with the C, be prepared to state your case, right? Why are we doing it? What's the root cause? What problem are we solving? So again, that analyzing, data-driven focus is what they are known for. And so of course they fear criticism of work, right? And so a way to do that is to involve them in knowing that they're almost the expert in data analysis. So again, those are the high levels of the DISC style. And then I will go to the next slide and kind of give you some more depth on this. So when you think of the DISC is really in these 4 quadrants. The top DI are known as the extroverts, right? They focus on the people and also the task. And then at the bottom, the CS are more of the introverts. So you can see how, based on what I said in the previous slide, how the bottom half, one is we are family, the other one is the analyzer, how they can be more of the introvert. And then you have the D at the top is like, the driver and the person that is going to get the party started, which is the I. So understanding these components and who are at your table as far as a team is important. But also when you're looking for partners is to think about this dynamic, because that is going to create your relationship with your business partner, and then also your customers and selecting your customers. What does that look like? There's a lot of people out, celebrities that are in these categories. So in a few minutes, we're going to go through those categories and see if you can guess what's a D style. But before we get to that, I want to kind of give you some examples of the dynamics of the two. So for example, I'm a DI, but I was being sold by someone for assurance, for example, and they were purely a D, right? And so the disconnect, they were giving me all this information. They're a driver, right? They're about closing the sale. They're about results. And I appreciated that about them. But the thing that really just turned me off was the fact that he didn't ask anything about me. Like, okay, well, what are your needs? And so that's that I in me, right? I want to connect with that people aspect of it. I want him to ask me my ideas. He wasn't. So
Just
needless
a number,
to say, he didn't get the sale. What did you say, Mike?
Just a number.
Yeah, I was just the number, right? And so that was our disconnect. But he would have, I was in my mind, I was ready to say yes, but because he didn't engage me on a personal level, right? What my needs were, asking me questions, he was too busy selling me. He lost me. And then at that point, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to find someone else, right? So then when you're thinking about your leadership and interacting in, you're thinking about your products and services, and, you're going to a vendor, you need to pitch an idea, or you actually trying to sell your product or service. Those are things to take in consideration. And then of course, the more you know about you, right? It's awareness that increases your confidence. So it doesn't matter what style you are. This is all about bringing self-awareness and to help you to really define your leadership essence. Once you define your leadership essence, which is, okay, I may be an S, I may not be a driver, that's okay. But there's something about my S that I'm bringing to this whole equation that's adding seasoning and spice for me to lead this organization or to interact with my team. Okay, so can anyone guess, okay, some D-style celebrities? So write in the chat, who do you think is a D-style? Think of any celebrity or, sports figure or anything. I'm trying to stay away from politics, but let's focus on celebrities and athletes. Anyone want to put anything in the chat that's a driver, that results focus, and that's competitive? That's another thing about a D, they're competitive. Who has used that?
Looks like we've got Elon Musk, Oprah in the chat.
Okay, not so much Oprah. Okay, let me give you some. Can you click on the D, Mike? Let's see what the D's are. So you got Tiger Woods, and then we have one more. And then we have Colin Powell, right? So now I think you probably are visualizing, okay, like Tiger, I mean, very competitive driver. He wants results to get his A game together, right? He's relentless. Nothing is stopping him, right? And then you have Colin, Cal, huh? You have Cal, right? Everyone knows him on the show when they're, a singer comes up, he's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. So he's very direct. So the D's are very direct and they're not going to hold back their opinion. So that could be a plus and that could be a negative. But on the plus side is that you already know what they're thinking. So whether if it's your customer or it's a partner, that's something you can appreciate, that they're not going to sugarcoat anything. They're going to tell you the information as it is. And so that you can use that information to your benefit. Yep, Simon Cowell. Yes, exactly. Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, then of course, the I style. Okay, these people are, I would say, like the connector, in some ways entertainer, right? They like to connecting people. They get energized by the people interaction. In the chat bar, who do you think is an I? I know someone mentioned some others before that I think will fit more in the I. Who do you think would be some I's, celebrity or athletic wise? I can't see the chat. Oh, sorry. I was going to see the chat.
Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yep. Anyone else? Let's see, I was going to look at. Somebody said Jerry Springer. Wow, okay. Yeah, probably, yeah, in the most dramatic way possible. Right. Definitely, I think we'll demonstrate I. Okay, here's some other celebrities. Okay, again, someone mentioned Oprah, right? Of course, she's the humanitarian. She's like a giver of, people. And of course, she loves the engagement of the talk shows and engaging in people. And then another trait of an I, which even if you didn't know what my style is, I'm using my hands a lot. Eyes use their hands as a lot as far as when they're talking, because they're really passionate about whatever they're talking about. And then you have, a comedian, right? All these people, right? They're looking to entertain and to engage people's reaction. They're, again, energized by people. Okay, and so then let's go to the S's, right? These people, I would say, are really inclusive, right? They make sure that everyone, it's like a hostess in a party. They make sure that everyone is, taken care of. They also make sure that no one is left out. They're trying to bring people in and to, solve problems and to engage in that aspect. What celebrities do you guys think about with an S? I think, did someone just put, okay, yeah, Barbara Walters. Yes, of course, that's a good one, yes. And then let's see what the celebrities that we came up with as well. Okay, Mr. Rogers. Some of you may be not old as I am, but you may not remember Mr. Rogers, but Mr. Rogers was a person that, had this show for kids and, educational type of thing on PBS. Again, he has that calm and patient level. That's a great benefit of an S, especially with the D that can be all over the place sometimes and very, aggressive maybe sometimes. I think an S is almost like the calming. It's like the Zen. I feel like an S is like Zen, right? So obviously you would need somebody like that on your team to kind of balance things out and to help you to think logically sometimes. And then we have Princess Diana, right? Everyone knows Princess Diana, right? Love people, very caring, patient, engaging, inclusive with what she was doing as far as representing her country. Okay, finally, we have the C's, right? I feel like these are the innovators. These are people that focus on facts. They don't want to focus on any like what ifs, like what are the facts that we're bringing to this project? What are the facts about, our partnership, this business deal? What are the facts? And then how do we leverage this in order to be successful, to launch our business and to, make sure that our products and services are actually meeting the need, right? Because I know in a lot of entrepreneurial, pitches that you do is VOC, meaning voice of customer, right? I can go up there as a DI and say, okay, all these fancy things, but your people that are investing in your business, they want to see numbers. They want to see, okay, how did you test this out? How many customers do you already have? What did they say? What are the results? That's where you can really leverage a person with the C, because they can bring you the data to help you look good. If an I is presenting it, that's going to help an I look good, because that C, that they went through all the detail of making sure that the information was good and ready for you. So who would you think of as a C? I think someone says, okay, yeah, founders of, Google. Yeah, most accountants definitely are probably a C. Exactly, obviously. Okay. Okay, here's some celebrities that we kind of came up with. Spock. Okay. I'm hoping that you guys know Star Trek, right? It's like, it's not that he doesn't have emotions. I know he has emotions down in there, but he's very controlled and he's focusing on the facts and the data, right? That's the beauty of Spock, right? It's like you can throw pins at Spock. He's not going to react. He's going to like, okay, what is the data? He's going to say it real slow tone. And that's another factor about the assessment, is that the DIs are really fast paced. And then you see the C's and the S sometimes come out more methodical and slower pace as well. And then another C that we have is, of course, Bill Gates, right? The innovator, right? I don't know, but I would assume that a lot of people that, are in the startup or partnering with other people have someone, that has high C in their assessment, right? Because they're the innovator, the people that come with an idea. C's are, I almost call them idea generators. So it's beneficial to have all those on your team.
Laveisha, can I add in something?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
And the other thing too is, if you have your startup and you find that you're living in a world of ideas, for example, and you're that high C, sometimes they might get analysis paralysis, right? That's an Achilles heel, and they might not ever move into action. So that's where having someone that is a D or I would be helpful, because they're more of a risk taker as well. So above the line are more of your risk takers. Now they look different, the way they express their risk taking, right? The D is going to be more of a task focused, jumping off a cliff type of risk taking, whereas an I is going to be more sharing their deepest, darkest secrets with a total stranger type of risk taking, right? Opening themselves up. It's something though to keep in mind when you're looking for potential partners, is knowing yourself well enough, and then knowing what your business needs to get either off the ground or to get to the next level, or maybe you got your first round of funding and you're trying to get the Series A or B funding. What's it going to take to get to the next level? What kind of people do you need? What kind of focus do you?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Mike. Talking definitely about that risk taking, right? Because you don't need everyone on your team being, strong risk takers. You need that balance, right? You need to get it started sometimes with the risk, but then, you need that person to kind of say, okay, that's insane, right? So awesome. Okay, let's go to an activity now where, okay, so Mike kind of took you to the foundation and give you understanding of what DISC is and where it came from. And then I kind of just went over some characteristics and some behaviors that you can think about as far as the different styles. Now I want us to do an activity. We're just going to do it as a group, or you just can post in the chat. Okay, so pretend that you are on an elevator, right? You're going to the 27th floor, right? And you have a representation of all these styles. You have a D, you have an S, an I, and a C. You have all those waiting at the elevator. I want you to tell me, what behavior do you think they would be exuding as far as trying to get on the elevator? So for example, what would be the D style? What would a D style be doing, right? They need to get to the 27th floor, right? And you know some information about them, that they're probably impatient. Type into the chat, what do you think a D style would be doing? Yes. Yeah, someone said push the button several times. Yes, because it's like, okay, where is this elevator? Right, exactly. Exactly, right, exactly. Curt and prepare, right, exactly, exactly. Okay, so then if we think about an I style, what would an I style be doing at the elevator? Yes, of course. Yep, Philip, yeah, might be on their cell phone, yes. Oh, yes, and I'd be like saying hi to everyone, yes. Yes, of course. You always have those people on the elevator. It's totally quiet.
More the merrier. Yeah.
Yes, it's totally quiet on the elevator. Somebody's going to interrupt. Hi, everyone. Okay, awesome. Okay, so if you have an S, is by the elevator trying to get to that 27th floor, what would an S be doing? What behaviors would they be showing or demonstrating? And then remember, the S is we are family. We're in this together. It's the we. What would an S be doing? Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Tina. Yes, they will allow others to enter first in the elevator. They will actually hold the door open so that you can get in. Again, very inclusive. That's a great benefit of an S, right?
They may even, if there's too many people for the elevator, they might even get off and take the stairs up so everyone else can
yeah.
go.
Okay, yeah. Right, exactly. Awesome.
At the extreme.
Exactly. Calm and quick. Yep. Yes. High challenge. Yes, of course. Okay. Finally, we have a C. What would a C be doing? Either waiting on the elevator or actually getting on the elevator. What would a C be doing?
Quiet.
Yep. They would be quiet. Yes. What else? What would they be doing? I'm looking for something. I'm waiting for that answer. What would they be doing? A C. Remember, they're an analyzer. They're like about data. And yes, exactly, Tina. Right. They will be looking at all the people on the elevator and say, okay, are we at capacity? At the capacity, it says it's, 400 pounds or whatever it says. It's like, okay, we're at 393 pounds. Okay, what are we going to do? I'm going to have to get off this elevator because we're too weight heavy on this. Thinking about how to make the elevator. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Okay, so it sounds like you guys have a good understanding and foundation of what the styles look like behavior wise. And then this is just the point is that once you're aware, now you can be intentional about your interaction. That's what the whole purpose of this presentation is. Awareness first for yourself, but now it's being intentional as far as your interaction with others. And now we're going to take you through your report, right, Mike?
Yep.
What's the next slide? Right. Okay. Yeah. So we're going to start taking you through some aspects of your report, and Mike is going to do that right now.
Okay.
Take it away, Mike.
So if you do have a report, it'll be on page 5. If you don't have a report, it's okay. Don't freak out. You'll still be fine. And again, if you do decide you want to take it afterwards, you'll have until Friday to do so. So again, the disc is really focused on these are some characteristics, behavioral characteristics that you may see for each of the styles. And as Laveisha was mentioning earlier, the D focus is really around problems, right? They're really great problem solvers. And that's what this dimension is. And so these characteristics, you'll see that they're on a continuum. And it's not like a 0 to 100 continuum. It's more kind of in the middle as your 0, and then you have extremes on either side. So think of it that way. So at the top, you'll see, for example, demanding, driving, forceful. At the bottom, you'll see kind of the softer aspects of it, more conservative, mild, agreeable, deliberate, right? And this is with respect to how they like to approach problems and make decisions, right? And this is naturally where they would be at. And so this is where you can bring out your pen or something to write with, or you can type it out, I suppose. But for yourself, on the D scale, what are 3 or 4 characteristics that would best describe you? So go ahead and take a moment to jot that down or type some notes. Where do you fall on this continuum? You're assessing yourself.
Right, because as you move up from it, right, the stronger those traits are, more dominant too, right? You see driving, demanding. Then as you go lower, right, it's more, you're still being a D. Again, we're a mix of all 4, and we are, you know, at the bottom, you're more deliberate and agreeable.
Yep.
And you're thinking about problems.
All right. Everyone got that? All right. So then the I, again, it's a focus on people in terms of how we like to influence others, right? And maybe even be influenced by others, but basically how we share opinions, how we express ourselves. So Laveisha mentioned earlier that, you know, the I is being a life of a party. That's someone who is a high I, is the life of the party.
Yeah.
Right. Someone who, that's their dominant preference, right? In terms of their style. They wear their hearts on their sleeves is another way to look at it. So you'll see things like gregarious, persuasive, inspiring, enthusiastic at the high end. And at the lower end, you'll see more reflective, okay, more matter of fact in their communication with others, right? Again, it's about how they're communicating, more reserved, more introspective. And so in this hypothetical person that we're building here, all right, this is a former client of Laveisha's. This individual was low on the D and low on the I, right, in terms of the characteristics. So go ahead and take a moment for yourself, and what would be 3 or 4 characteristics on the I that you think best describes you? And take a moment to capture that. There's also there's some subscales if you get into the inner workings of this assessment, and that is on the I, there's a trust aspect of it. Those who are strong I's tend to be very trusting of others, right? Even strangers that they've just met, which is why they're tend to be more open with others. Those at the low end tend to be more skeptical, kind of wait and see before they'll divulge those deep, dark secrets we talked about earlier, right? I need time to get to know you first. So that's an aspect. And another aspect of the I is optimism. Those who are strong I's tend to be at the outset glass half full, and those at the low end tend to be, again, more skeptical or pragmatists, I would say, would be a way to put it. They're not necessarily negatives, but more pragmatists. Okay, so that's the I. Now the stabilizing is really, as Laveisha mentioned, it's about the pacing of things. They're slower paced at the low end of S. I'm sorry, at the high end. So strong S, you'll see patient, predictable, passive. Remember, they're about harmony, peace. Okay? Smooth waters. So these would be the people, for example, that if there's a conflict in a team, they might soften people's positions. They might fall into that informal mediator type of role because they care about stability. At the low end, you'll see things such as restless, active, chaotic, spontaneous. Okay. So again, jot down where you think you are. In this former client, they were a high S. Where are you? Go ahead and capture that for yourself. And then the last one with cautious, someone who is high on that is going to be more perfectionistic, right? And you see the analytical in there, systematic, right? They like rules, they like standards for themselves and for others. So oftentimes they'll be upholding those standards and rules and ways of doing things, routines, things of that nature. So there's a lot of focus on that. And a low C will be a little bit more of a, rules are kind of made to be broken, at the extreme, or rules are just suggestions, okay, at the low end. So those are some indicators there. So capture that for yourself as well. Where would you put yourself? And some of you may be right in the middle. So again, it's not necessarily one end or the other, but go ahead and capture for yourself top 3 or 4 descriptors you think resemble you the most. Right? So what we're going to do now is, for the sake of time, we're going to do a just briefly. I think we're going to, Laveisha, I think we'll just kind of skip the next activity and build it into the.
Yeah, because I think it's 15 minutes till 1.
Yeah, we'll combine it with the next one.
Yeah.
For the sake of time. Okay, so here's another aspect to introduce to you. We all have a natural style, and that's the one we would choose without any external pressure from anyone else. This remains stable over time, just like people's personalities remain stable over time. How many of you have kids? Put in the chat box. How many of you have kids? Or nieces or nephews? Okay. Generally, how they were at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old remains stable over time. So if they were someone that was really focused on things just being just so, the details and all that, chances are, as a grown adult, and even you look at yourself, probably focused on the details, right? If it's someone that tends to be impulsive, right? Now, most kids tend to be impulsive until they get a little older, 9, 10, but then it starts to set in at that point. So if it's someone that tends to be spontaneous and impulsive, chances are naturally they will be as an adult, kind of more of that adventurous risk-taking aspect of it, okay? But we all also have an adapted style. And that is how we behave based on our environment, based on how we perceive our environment and what seems to be necessary for us to survive and be successful, right? For us to be effective in that environment, whether it's that company culture, whether it's the team that we have surrounding us, whether it's another department, we all adapt. And so this is called your mask style, right? We all put on this mask when we go to work each day because it's either the role we need to fill. So if we're the founder of this company, there's certain things that are expected of someone who's the founder, right? To drive a process, for example, to set the vision, all these things. So we all have an adapted style, and this fluctuates over time. So if you took the DISC assessment 6 months from now, and your startup, is in a totally different place, maybe sales ramped up dramatically, or maybe they, maybe you lost, a key client or something like that, or different circumstances will affect your adapted style, right? The things that we do in order to be effective. So you'll notice in this scenario here, with that prior client that I went through on the previous page, you'll see a representation here in bar graph form. Again, low D and I. And what do you notice though about the adapted style. The adapted style is the gray bar. The natural is the colored bars. What are your observations? Go ahead and put in chat. What patterns do you notice?
Especially, well, look at that eye though. There's that eye. It seems like there's some change. What would you say? Maybe there's some things that may be happening with that.
And these numbers here on the bottom, for those that are more numerically inclined, this shows you the difference on a scale 0 to 100, basically, as well. Lower an I, maybe they have a coworker who is an I. Sure, that's possible.
Okay.
So you're already thinking ahead, which is great. Maybe they're aware of making conscious changes. Yep. So yeah, so why would someone, let's talk about that. Why might someone adapt from being kind of a mid, let's call it a almost mid-level I to just like almost nothing? And someone did mention maybe they have a coworker that's kind of out there, right? So they're deferring. What might be some other reasons why someone might adapt downward on the I scale?
I will give this a little more context, is that, if you don't mind, Mike, is that this was an executive. He was a director, and his goal was to be a senior director, right? So he was really focused on doing the task and trying to be that. But his boss put him on a performance plan, meaning that he saw some behaviors that were not in alignment for the next leadership role, that some things that he needed to work on. And so that I was definitely one part of that indicator, but the S too, kind of, if you notice, there's some downgrade in the S. So some things changed in the S as well. Can you guess, like, you know, maybe something on his performance that will be?
Saying the role fits them better, not needed, it's possible, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it's me interpreting the I, but I is very interactive. So if time goes on, maybe it's the jobs. You're gonna have to start not worrying about other people and interacting. You gotta start doing the job. So rolling it back down. And that's just me.
Yeah. Well, remember also, what is the S? The S is about pace too, right? So that's maybe potentially a need to pick up the pace. You can't just, you know, wait for consensus maybe, or you can't, right? You got to move things forward, right?
Yes, about the work.
Exactly.
And this was the dilemma in his case, is that one is his complaints. He was a brilliant guy, like he's brilliant, right? Very smart, like, you know, he's mid-C, so ideas, like he's great. But one of the issues is that he would not interact with people. So he would be in his office, you know, processing, right? It took him longer to process things. So he would be in his office, and one of his complaints of his boss is that, you know, we don't know where you at, because they don't see him, because he's in his office at lunch. He's in his office, go eat lunch in his office. But then too, he was kind of overwhelmed. He wasn't keeping up with the pace of the work that was expected of him, right? He was in that part of C that may not be as attractive, as he was in analysis paralysis, right? Because on some level that was his comfort zone. But in order to move to that senior director role, obviously it's going to require you to step up your game. And so they saw some things in that they wanted to address.
Exactly. So these are some things to keep in mind. Now, the adaptation, so if you think about it, if your natural state is to be, for example, kind of predictable, stable, complacent, and now you're adapting, you need to be more high energy. What kind of impact do you think that could have on someone over the long run if they need to adapt in that way? What might be some implications? Someone says burnout, or Philip says burnout.
Yes.
Yeah, that could happen. So one of the things is adaptation is good. There's healthy adaptation and there's unhealthy adaptation. And that's a very personal thing. So generally when we see scores that are maybe 20 points or more difference, like we do in the S, goes from 88 to 53, that's a significant or meaningful adaptation, but you have to put it into context. And so if you're doing that for a week or a month, maybe that's fine for him, for that director. But if you had to do that for 6 months or a year, that might create some strain. And there's been studies that have shown as well that, you know, these significant adaptations over time outside of our natural style can really lead to, you know, health issues, depression,
Yes.
acting out,
Yes.
all kinds of things. So
Yeah.
something to keep in mind is when you have your organization, your startup, and you're building your team, if there's high stress, like right now we're in this pandemic, you know, more people than average are in a high stress state. So what we're seeing now is, you know, people in their stressed out way of being versus their preferred way of being, right? People are just trying to cope. And so you get all kinds of wonky behaviors and maladaptive, you know, unproductive, dysfunctional behaviors when people are really stressed. So particularly if they don't have the coping capabilities, right, to counteract that. So it's something to just be mindful of there. So really what it's about, and we ship this, to the extent you know yourself is awesome. Now, you can have a multiplier effect by being able to understand others and the interaction of these styles, right? Because they can work together, or, you know, you could be like this. So how many of you have had this kind of relationship with a co-founder, a previous one? Maybe they're not around anymore, right? So sometimes it's because the style difference, but there's also underneath that, there's values inherent in that as well. There might be a values difference. There's personality differences. So there's these other factors too. We're just focused on behavioral styles, right? We're focused on one aspect. So again, the point of this isn't to really judge other people. It's really to understand who they are so that we can do the dance, do an effectively dance together to get this company to the next level. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now we'll pull out. You guys get to, we'll peel back the curtains here. These are Laveisha and I's actual results. So what do you notice here? So if we are building a business together, Laveisha and I.
Looks very complimenting, actually.
You know, should we go in business together or not? We couldn't figure it out, so we thought we'd ask all of you.
I would say
Say we balance each other out.
You're going to consult us.
so. This is funny because I think Philip and I are exactly like, I'm in a higher I and then a lower D. I mean, close. I'm an I and then a D, and then Philip is higher on his, I think it was S, and then maybe C were his two higher ones. And so I was actually going to ask the question earlier. So can we change our business partners to be more like us? But I realize, like you guys are saying, you know, like it's actually understanding and then realizing like, okay, I'm the doer, and then he's more focused on like the results, you know, or like the structure of making sure it's sound. So I think this is really helpful with building those teams, is really understanding like how to use other people's strengths and weaknesses and not try to change them, which is my my learning lesson for, you know, for a bit now.
We all want that magic wand, just like become. Unfortunately, we don't have that power.
Yeah, oftentimes we have this affliction. It's called the BLM syndrome, right? You know, be like me. And we want everyone to think like us and just the way we do. And depending on the context, someone put that in there, depends on the product or service. Drew, right? That can make a difference. Depends what we're trying to accomplish here. And it can work for you, it can work against you.
Yeah.
Right? So Carla, when you mentioned that you and Philip have more or less different styles, what's needed is, do you have some common values? Do you have common goals? You need some things that are going to keep you on the same page. And then what it's like running a house together, right? Dividing up the household chores. What makes sense? Maybe one person is more the event planner, or maybe someone else is more the fixer, right? You kind of determine that with your significant other. So it's like this with your businesses. What does the business need? It needs to be sold. Do you think I'd be a great salesperson? I could be, but I'm not going to be the flashy type, right? Certainly as an SC, I'm going to be more of that calm, methodical, maybe boring, right? Unless I'm talking to another
Right. But that's why, but that's the benefit of even us as partners, but then also with your customers. Like I told you with that guy, he was trying to sell me. It's like being in tune to who you selling, and you're customizing your talk track to who you are presenting to, right? If there's an I'm a D or whatever, and I'm trying to sell to a C, I may need to bring some more numbers to the table versus like just saying, okay, I want you to get our product today. We are, ready to go. We have everything together, right? But then just to leverage off of you, Mike, just to see how Mike can help me is that he's a high C and you see mine is a low C, right? He can help me in that as far as helping me to, like, if we're going to pitch a client, right? He can help me with the data analysis, which drain my energy, right? I like just to look at, okay, what are the bottom line, right? I don't want to spend hours doing all that detail, but he's good at that, right? So then I'm like, okay, we can partner. You do that. And then I can be the icebreaker when we start the meeting, right? I can engage the client. That could be my role, right? But then when we're talking about numbers, I would say, okay, Mike, I can start to talk, but then if they want more detail, then I'm going to lean on Mike and say, Mike, Mike has more of that details to really answer your question, client or customer, and then we can work together. Now, one of the areas, Mike, that I think we already know this, as we can possibly have some conflict is that I'm a high D, he's a low D. So he may not be going fast enough for me in certain things. And that's something that I will have to adapt to depending on the situation. If I know that about him, he knows that about me, we can work in harmony about, again, it's about awareness and being intentional once you understand that awareness. Right. And then I think what I say, I said we complement each other. Did I say we complement each other? Yeah. Oh, I can help him more with an I. Right? He can help me with the C. I can help him more with the I, with the energy wise or breaking the ice as talking to a client or something like that. So he can help me with the C, and then I can help him with the I. But then as far as the D, that's a potential conflict. We need to be aware of that and try to figure out ways to strategize.
Yeah. So there's you can look at it different ways, right? And if there's something unexpected that comes up, right? So I might respond in a way that's more measured and calm, whereas someone that's Lavasha might kind of immediately react, right? That's a risk, right? Being a high D, they're going to want to just immediately react, which may or may not be the best thing at that moment. Depends what the situation is, right? If it's a fire in a theater, you want a Lavasha. You don't want, you want me to say, well, let's see, that door might be the best one. Like we want someone to take charge. Yes. But if it's with a customer that's upset, we want to be able to kind of calm things up. So again, it's on context. All right.
So I know we're running on time, so let's. Yeah.
So
I don't know, Mike, what else you want to say on it?
I'm going to look for some guidance from Philip so we can make sure we wrap up on time. Philip, when
I had a question. So Mike, you had asked the question about should we go into business together? And that question was not answered. So I'm not going to assume if you should go to business together, because, you know, sometimes when I do think of co-founders, maybe famous ones, they didn't complement each other. They were just on the same level, you know, moving fast forward, or they're always hiding. So answer the question. What is it? Should you guys go into business
Yeah,
together?
that's a more complicated answer, right? We have to bring in all these other factors, such as
Definitely
like,
values.
what's our vision? What are our values? What are our goals?
Yeah.
Do we have other people to fill in our gaps?
Building a
right?
team.
What's the level? So, and that's a question we want to put to you. Do we have time, Philip, to do a breakout, or no?
Yeah, I think we still have time for that. And, you know, just to kind of add on to that last example, I think that's good to have complementary people, of course, but the awareness, that's a big takeaway for me. It's the awareness of, you know, if someone's high D, for example, and they seem a little more short-tempered, you might know exactly why. And you might need to know how to adjust your style of working with them to get to the bottom line real quick. So I think it's not necessarily, you know, just to take an assessment and find a co-founder,
Right.
but how to work with someone.
Exactly.
It's one data point. It's not. It doesn't mean that you can't. Someone mentioned the Google co-founders before, right? I think. I don't know specifically, but they might both be kind of the SC
right.
in that area. And so they've built a very successful company. So again, you have to put context to it. Like, what kind of team did they build? You know, how did they go about, compensating maybe for the fact that they weren't a high D or a high I, right? So again, it's not a black and white answer by any means. And if anyone tells you that,
Yeah, that's
run. Yeah, you need to kind of factor in other things. So why don't we take like 3 minutes and breakouts? We're gonna break out into pairs and have your descriptors that you jotted down in front of you, and pretend that you're interviewing someone to be a potential co-founder, your partner, and determine for yourselves, would you be compatible using your knowledge of what you know up to this point about disk theory. All right, so I don't know how many are still in rooms or if everyone's back, but what was the verdict? What was the verdict? Feel free to put in the chat box. Did you decide you could potentially go into business together, or, you know, the jury's still out, or definitely no? Right? Imagine that, 3 minutes picking a partner.
it's like a matchmaking game, huh?
Not totally realistic. Yeah, it's like speed dating.
Yeah, speed dating. That's what it was. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think from my conversation with Drew, I think one of the things we came out with is it was just more of that awareness, right? Yeah. Is that if I'm aware of what I am, then I kind of can open myself up to what I need as far as a partner or, you know, another teammate.
Yep. Yep. In our group as well, there were three of the folks had D as their probably one of their primary styles. So the conversation came up about having all chiefs and no Indians. So I don't know if it's the best terminology, but you know, being able to look at if there's a common goal, then they can be a force to be reckoned with. Whereas if there's different priorities, then it could be a lot of clashing. So again, there's a lot of other factors that come into play beyond the disc styles. And that's where Elevation and I work with a lot of teams around that and looking at some of those factors. And so what you can actually do is, if you, in teams that we've worked with, you know, we actually will take a team and plot them on a map like this, right? So you have the D, I, S, and C, and you can see where the team falls. And we don't have time today to get into the details, but you can see what are the strengths of the team based on where each of those circles represent an individual on the team. So if we look at that, we can see like what are the strengths and where are the potential vulnerabilities of the team.
kind of like a SWOT analysis, right, of your team, right, Mike?
Yeah, and it's all within context of what you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
Right. So I worked with an IT team that was like, they had all the servers. I did the disk on them, and all of them were SC, mostly in the C, except for one person, Winnie, who was in the I. She was all by herself as a strong I. Now one might say, wow, that's not necessarily a good thing. But for a server group, if you want 100% uptime, it's probably good that you have an abundance of highly detailed, perfectionistic people, right? Because the whole company counts on it, right? In this case, it was like, 17,000 employees. So you generally want it. But the vulnerability they had was being able to communicate with all the business units and delivering what the business units wanted. And so again, so they eventually were able to leverage Winnie as kind of a liaison for that. Naturally, she was very much a people relator and influencer. So again, this is just kind of an example to just give you a sense of how it can be used. And so we mentioned, like with sales and communication, for some of you that in the initial poll mentioned what your challenges are. Again, you can use the disc in many different ways, as you see here. And really, again, it's a tool, right? It's a tool. It's not a panacea for everything, but it's definitely something that can be good for your toolkit. As we mentioned earlier, and I don't know if you can put it in the chat again, Philip, but we're offering this for free. It's not going to be a sales call. I mean, if you want to know what we offer, that's fine. But the focus of this is to help you either understand your disc style or strategize around a current problem you have. So you get some free coaching with either one of us or both of us, up to you. You've got the links there that go directly to our calendars. So feel free to schedule yourself for that. And we may have a questionnaire for you to complete in advance so that we can make the most out of that time, that 20 minutes, so you get value out of it. So definitely feel free to do that. And then here's our contact information. We invite you to connect with us on LinkedIn. So we're both very active on LinkedIn, and we're writing articles or posts, or we'd love to follow you and support you as well. So feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn or email us. And that's what we've got for today.